Once you're cleared to play again after an injury, a lot of times this is where the real challenge begins. And the real challenge is finding your skills, finding your rhythm, and finding your confidence back on the field or the court. In this episode, I want to go over a strategy that you can use when you do return to play, or if you have just returned to play, to help you as an athlete as you are trying to regain your skills and your high level of performance after an injury. Now, after an injury, there are a couple different reasons why you might be underperforming. One very simple reason may be that you're out of rhythm. When I've worked with players who have returned from ACL tears, which are, one of the most extensive recovery processes, or simple injuries like a concussion that had them out for a couple of weeks, or an ankle sprain. The similar challenge is when they do return to play, since they haven't been playing a lot recently, they don't feel like they are in the rhythm of the game, where they're a step behind, maybe their decision making is off a little bit. So we just simply see that the lack of recent experience playing can cause a challenge with your rhythm. But we can also see the challenge of fear present itself. And this will split off into two different types of fear. One is the fear of re-injury, which is a major one when you come back from recovering from an injury. But then also the fear of making mistakes. Now, the fear of re-injury occurs mainly when athletes are confident in themselves that they are healed, they've been cleared by their doctor, by their trainers, but then when they do return to play, there's that nagging fear that they're going to get re-injured. This can happen because of the pain of injury, but one of the main reasons I hear athletes explain it to me is that they're scared and they're fearful of the long and grueling recovery process. I've worked with a player, or I worked with a player relatively recently who had just recovered from an injury, and we were working through their fear of getting re-injured because they were returning to play. And they shared with me that their biggest fear was having to go through the whole process again, because the process took them months of recovery and rehab and rest and being away from their game, and they just didn't want to have to go through that again. And because of that fear of getting re-injured, they were playing timid, they were holding themselves back, they were hesitating. And those are the very same things that happen, and it's very similar to being afraid of making mistakes when, you don't want to make mistakes when you return because, you don't want to get immediately benched maybe, or you don't want coach to think that you're a step behind, so then you play scared to make mistakes. And again, those are the same things that happen where you play timid, you play scared, you hold yourself back, you hesitate. And so whether it's fear of injury, fear of re-injury, or fear of making mistakes, when you do have that fear when you play, you're going to underperform. And then the last reason why you might be underperforming right now is confidence. And this goes along the same lines as the lack of rhythm, right? So as I was mentioning in the first challenge where you just haven't played a lot recently, that can cause a lack of confidence because you don't trust in yourself to go out there and play. And when you're missing that trust, you won't be playing as freely and as aggressively, especially if you are also dealing with the fear of getting re-injured or the fear of making mistakes. So what can you do then? If you're underperforming right now, maybe you had a couple bad games and you didn't perform your best. Well, we want to make sure that going into the game, we have the correct mindset. During the game, we want to make sure that we're using different mental tools, but most importantly, we have the right mindset that will help you play your best. And then after games, we have to respond and evaluate these performances in a very specific way. Now, I have a few different tools and tips that will help you do this. So we're going to focus first on how you approach the game and then also your mindset during the game. And then the last tip that I will share is how you can go about responding to and evaluating the games once they do finish. So going into a game, it's really important, and this is the first tip, it's really important that you're focusing on progress and not expecting perfection. And now an example of this comes from a basketball player that I'm currently working with, and he's in the off season right now training, and he's getting ready to go back to playing, in a season, but he's also just getting ready to go back and play some pickup games just to get the feel of the game again. And he is really worried right now about returning to play, even just playing pickup games, because he knows that he's not 100%. Now, physically, right, so he had a knee injury. The knee is 100%. He's been cleared by his doctors, all that. It's all good. But his play is not 100% because there's still this fear, this worry, this concern about his old injury. And so he and I were discussing how we have to return to play accepting that we won't be at 100%. And we have to be patient with ourselves, and we have to focus on progress. Right? If you return to play right now and you're coming off of an injury, Of course, I want you, you want you, your coaches want you to be at the top level that you can be. But if you are just returning from an injury and other players have been playing consistently, it's natural that you will be a step behind. And you have to accept that. And so what you need to focus on going into the game and then also during the game is progress. You want to just try to make progress, which means you want to be performing your skills a little bit better. You want to be making, a little bit better decisions, but you have to not have the expectation that you're going to return to playing perfect. In fact, you never want to have the expectation that you'll play perfect because of all the different mental challenges that presents. But especially when you are returning after an injury, you need to focus on progress, not perfection. The way you can do this is by setting small goals for yourself during the game. And you want to make these goals, as much a part of the process as possible, right? So maybe, or I guess a good example would be going back to that basketball player example. One of the things he's worried about is pushing off and jumping off of his leg that he hurt the knee, or the leg in which he hurt his knee. And so for him, a good challenge would be, or a good goal would be, to try to be more explosive off of that leg for the time being. Same thing is true, if it's working on his cuts or whatever it ends up being. But you want to set small goals for yourself during the game, because that's going to help you focus on progress, not perfection. Now, the other tip that I have for you is that we have to pay attention to our self-talk. And this is something I talk a lot about because, the mental side of the game, our emotions, the actions that we take during a game, they all stem from our thinking, right? Our thinking is at the core of our emotions, of our actions, of our behavior. If I can change my thinking to where I'm not thinking so much about how I am a step behind, how I'm not having self-talk like, well, I'm not 100% yet, and I'm able to think things like, today I'm going to get better. Today I'm focusing on progress. And I use that self-talk to instill this belief that I'm focusing on progress, not perfection. That's going to help me out a lot as well. And during the game, this is where self-talk becomes critical during or after a mistake, and then during the moments in the game, so you can keep yourself present. But mainly after a mistake, you need to make sure that you're not beating yourself up after every little mistake, because that's going to chip away at what little confidence you do have right now. And that brings me to this last tip, which is how you work on building confidence and building trust in yourself, which is also the tip I want to share with you that will help with evaluating the games when you don't feel like they were the best games that you've ever had. Now, as I said earlier, we're focusing on progress, which means we are not expecting ourselves to be performing at our top level yet. That doesn't mean that we're going to try any less, we're not going to try as hard, right? It doesn't mean that we are going to think that we're not good enough. It means that we can't expect ourselves to be playing perfectly yet. And if we're going to focus on progress, we have to see that progress, which means after games, even if the game didn't go as well as you would like and as well as you play when things are going well and, pre-injury as well as you were playing then, we have to focus on the success that we had that day. So if I'm setting small goals for myself going into the game, after the game, I need to reflect on whether or not I achieved those goals, which is why it's really important that you set your goals based on things in your control. Because if the goals are based on things in your control, after the game, you should be able to look back and say, I stuck to that goal, and that reflection is going to build confidence in yourself. But if you're expecting yourself to immediately be performing at this high level, you expect perfection of yourself, after the game, you're going to look back and you're going to think, well, I'm not there yet. I'm not good enough yet. And what is that doing to your confidence? Is that building confidence or is that lowering confidence for you? After the game, you have to reflect on the successes that you have or that you have had, and you have to focus and reflect on the progress you made that day, no matter how small it may be, because this is what creates confidence. And as you get back into playing, you regain that rhythm and you feel more comfortable, you're going to feel more confident as well. And the last tip I want to share with you is that if you do see progress with this mentality of I'm going to focus on progress, not perfection, if you see yourself regain your confidence by reflecting on the good things and after the game, after you set those controllable goals for yourself and you feel good about that, and you're seeing progress and improvement because you're having positive self-talk, don't stop, right? Just because you're playing well, just because you get your play to be back to where it was pre-injury, keep that up, because there's a reason that you got that play to back to where it was. It's because you are having a better mindset and you're using your mindset to help you play better. So again, I know that returning to play after an injury is incredibly frustrating and tough, but you have to be patient with yourself. So I hope these tips in the video and the episode today helped. If you have any questions about them, please let me know in the comments below. And also, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, which is the it's a mental coaching program that I offer, I've put a link to learn more about that in the description below as well. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.